Blog Talk Radio.
Well, believe we're live, but I'm not hearing our host. Where is Ernie gone? Ernie, are you there? Ernie?
Yes, I'm here. Did you
Good.
Did you not get the music intro?
Oh, I heard something squeaking in the background, a little bit the chipmunks in.
I'm going to have to do a better job of that. Anyway, so yeah, Michael. It's Michael Linton and Ernie Jacob. This is Open Me on Blog Talk Radio. And we've got a winter wonderland outside with, a couple feet of snow. And a lot more piled up on the sidewalks. There's lots of room for cars, but the city insists on piling up snow, not just on the sidewalks, but where the roads meet the sidewalks. So you got to go climb over mountains of snow to get onto the sidewalks. Anyway, it's disgusting if you have to walk around town at all, which I do. And so do a lot of people, and I can get around okay. I'm fairly fit. But there are many others who have a lot of trouble in the snow. Anyway, much less having to wade through mountains of piled up snow. Anyway, so that's the situation in the Comox Valley. It's a beautiful day, though. The sun is shining. It does look like a winter wonderland out there. But scratch a little deeper and you see that there are problems here in Paradise. For instance, the Salvation Army campaign. This is the newspaper, the biweekly newspaper here, saying the Salvation Army campaign is 40% short of target. And there's another headline, pressing need for daytime shelter for the homeless. And it's not over yet. Valley hit by freezing cold, wind, and snow, and there's more on the way. So for those of us who are comfortable in our warm homes, let's give a thought for those who aren't. And
let's give a thought to the situations and circumstances and procedures and institutions that hold this situation in such a way that it will persist and recur interminably. This is not just bad luck or mischance. This is an inevitable consequence of our competitive dog-eat-dog rat race economy, and that it requires pretty much that there shall be losers. There shall be people who are not able to make it work. And that's not a moral position. It's not sort of an ethical imposition. It's not a political attitude. It's a systemic one. The money we're playing with is a rich-poor money, and particularly as people aspire to be rich, it creates others who must be poor. Just the name of the game.
And we talked quite a bit about that in our last segment, where you actually took apart the Time magazine article about alternative currencies. And so today's show, we're going to deconstruct community currencies, the various flavors that they come in, whether they're mutual credit or time bank, hour-based systems, Chiemgauer, Sane, all kinds of weird and wonderful currencies. Some are called local currencies, some they call alternative currencies. Complementary currencies is another one that's used. We prefer to use the term community currencies. We're talking about money that circulates within our communities, our networks, associations, organizations, and businesses. So let's get to it, Michael. You're going to do the deconstructing. I'm going to do the listening?
Well, as before deconstruction, I think we need to lay out an elementary frame for the essence of open money. One of the increasingly frustrating issues is the difficulty that there seems to be in appreciating what open money is as opposed to what it is not. And there's four principal issues to be considered when you try to analyze whether any particular initiative is an open money or just another old closed one. The first of this is access, use. Is it here and can you play? Does this recirculating currency in your community serve you? In what way? And in the first place, can you get at it? The second one is a deeper one. It's about whether your participation in the currency has any sovereignty. Does it respect you as an individual? Do you have rights to commit your energy to make promises, i.e., can you be an issuer of this money as an individual? The third is the meta-autonomy of that. Okay, so there's 5 or 6 currencies in my community. Can I add a 6th, a 7th, an 8th, a 23rd? Can I create a currency for my neighborhood? Does this facility, my local community currency operation, does it provide me with the ability to create currencies? And that has several levels to it. Do they come in 2 flavors, vanilla and vanilla plus? Or do you have the capacity to pick from 500 different community specifications? And then ultimately, the next level on that is, can you create specifications on the fly? Specs on the fly. That's a change. It's usually fly on the specs, isn't it? But anyway, if you can create the specifications, then you've got a truly deep, creative, autonomous ownership capacity. The fourth criterion that I like to address here is, okay, you can reach in, you can create fractal networks within the community of place, the community of affinity. Your network is got the opportunity for you to offer within that network many different options. But do you also have the capacity to reach out beyond your geographical community, your little walled garden of membership? Perhaps it's your church, perhaps it's school, chamber of commerce, your locality. Does your local community currency facility enable you to be beyond that? And that's the 4. The first is, can you get at it at all? Does it exist? The second is it really your money? That is, do you have the capacity to create a transaction inside this currency where you are the issuer of the money, or are you subordinate to the group, the institution, the pattern, the play? The third is your capacity to independently create a currency within your community, a currency system, which carries with it all the spectrum bells and whistles of multiple specifications available, or even specifications you create. And the fourth, can you connect beyond your immediate network? Can you become part of the global as well as the local frameworks? There is a 5th, which is hardware, software, technical system relationship. Because we can right now go all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4, particularly with Hugh Bernard's CC Lite program, which you can find on hughbernard.org. We can create the conditions for open money that are satisfied by that program. At this point, probably the final stage in creating a truly open money global platform is that server shall speak unto server. Can we step outside one particular hardware installation and one particular software design application and enable a protocol and a connectivity that allows us to create this network of networks on a global level? That's the technical and operational barrier that we're currently stuck with or facing, working on. But the first four, well, technically they're handled. It's now possible to install a piece of software that allows you and any others in your group, any that you can induce to join your membership group, your community of identity. Each person within that community identity, each user within that community of identity, be it a business, a non-profit, be it a virtual corporation even, be it a government, each one of those can be a fully fledged participant at the use it, commit it, create it, and declare a new currency. And with Hugh Bernard software, the capacity lies for us to create a global network. However, the globality of that network, is that a word? I just create a new word, globality? The globalization.
It's an ugly word. It's an ugly word. Yeah, no,
Be
come on,
gone,
you need a
ugly
better
word
than globality for that one.
Well, and I know that there are plenty, they just don't spring to my fevered brain this morning. But those are all available. We got them. It can happen. The scaling, as one gets from a few thousand to a few million to a few 100 million and to billions of people, well, that requires that we get to fully distributed server network. And there's a technical hurdle, there's a challenge, and there are people working on it, and there will be more. And it will have a lot to do with phones, believe me on that. As I'm sure you do. Everybody listening is believing me, aren't they? Please believe me.
I believe you.
Thank you, Ernie. I know you do. I know you do. So, on that spectrum of bits and pieces, let's start at the bottom of the barrel. Let's start with the lowest common or uncommon denominator, the legal tender. Conventional dollar, conventional pound, euro, yen, whatever. Do you have access to it? Well, as usual, that's a question of whether you're prepared to jump through the hoops that you're required to jump through to get hold of the money that is being dangled in front of you. Who pays the piper calls the tune. So if you want to earn the federal dollar, you do what is asked of you. It's the only way to get it, or steal it. Perhaps you can beg it. Perhaps you can borrow it if you've got something that the banks or the lender will take as a security against your inability to repay it at some point. But the idea that because it's there you have access is clearly inadequate. There's plenty of federal money sloshing around the planet, plenty of legal tender, plenty of national currencies, and there is widespread poverty, deprivation, exploitation. No, it does not qualify. Okay then. Well, let's look at the first level of what are we going to do about it. I mean, coming up from the bottom again. And that takes us to the paper currencies that are substitutes for the other. And here I'm talking about things like the Salt Spring dollar, the Toronto dollar, most recently the Berks dollar, but also the Chiemgauer in Germany, and the recent Regios, the regional currencies that Marguerite Kennedy and Bernard Lietaer are spearheading. And let's look at them in terms of this criteria. Can you use it? Can you get at it? Can you commit in it? Can you create it? Can you connect beyond that group? Criterion one, can you use it? Well, if you can buy it or earn it, yeah, just like the other stuff. The structure of a Berkshire and Toronto dollar, Salt Spring dollars, is you buy it. It is considered to be a money because it is backed by a money. You go to the bank or the store and you lay down 100 hard ones, the usual, and they give you 100 softies, the pretty pictures. Now, I know this is a social act, and I know that it creates a certain sense of, yippee, we're all working together on this. But frankly, the systemic implication is that if I have a horse pulling a cart and I paint wheels on my horse, then I have a horseless carriage. The wheels are purely illusionary, delusionary at times. And my particular problem with all of these currency models is that it's not clear who is deluding whom.
Now,
in all
Michael,
the discussions,
when you say all of these currency models, I think, can you be specific, a little more specific than all?
All the pay-to-get-it package, all the ones that are supposed to be strong, secure, and valuable because they have something stronger and more secure and more valuable holding them up. That is the federal dollar or the euro or whatever. The currencies where you pay to get in and then you can cash out at a later level. The currencies which are essentially not much higher than the gift cards that you can buy at so many stores these days. Happy Christmas! Buy a gift card from our store. Give the gift of, well, the book token, the record. Did I say record? Well, all those pre-purchase cards, stored value on a card. And what can you do with it? Well, you can only take it back to the issuer, the retailer that did it. Now, the Berkshire, the Toronto dollar, etc., the VIR to some extent, I believe, although I may be inaccurate about that, I think it has the same component. You get VIR by depositing cash. Certainly the Berks you do, certainly the Toronto dollar, Salt Spring dollars. The only way to get that stuff is to earn it, when you might as well be earning hard cash if that's the issue, or buy it with the hard cash that you earned already. So it fundamentally doesn't change anything in the access consideration, the first criteria. The second one is this an owned currency? Can you consider yourself to be an autonomous individual within it, capable of issuing dollars or whatever in that network? And the answer to that is flat no. All of these so-called community currencies, well, actually they don't call them community currencies, they call them complementary currencies. And that'd be perhaps a useful term to apply to them. Very complimentary. How are you doing today? Oh, you look great. That's a compliment. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a compliment. And that's the difficulty with these currencies, is that they pretend to something. They present a facade. They make it look like, oh, we're now using a piece of paper with our local logos or landscapes or famous people from our community are printed on them. Does this mean we've changed anything? Actually, no, not at all.
Well,
we may have changed.
What about the fact that these pieces of paper, this artwork, circulates in the community? It doesn't immediately fly out like the other stuff, like the convention.
This is like, suppose you're in an isolated community and there's quarters and dimes and nickels, coinage, in addition to paper bills. Now, the local bank is willing to ship bills in and out of town because they can go in comparatively low cost per dollar transport. But they're not going to shift out the coinage because it's too damned heavy, and what's the point? So the coinage tends to stick around, whereas the bills come and go. Really, all these Berkshires and the like are equivalent to a coinage. in that, yeah, they're not going to leave town. Nobody else out there wants them. It's too much trouble and whatever. So they slosh around inside. But they slosh around as a component of the money that is already just one slosh before it spins out. In every community where a particular person on the street goes out and spends $1,000, spends it on groceries, spends it on car repair, spends it on haircuts, whatever. A certain component of that money will go through the local wage packets, through local taxation, through perhaps local advertising, local products bought and sold, wholesalers. But a hell of a lot of that $1,000 is straight out of town in an instant. Now, suppose, in fact, we generally calculate it's between 60 cents and 70 cents. It's straight out of your region. 60 at a large city, 70 at a smaller place, and 80 at a smaller village. And if you happen to be a two-horse town, call it 90% is out every time you spend it. Now, even in that 90,
the amount that it circulates is calculated as a what is it called? The multiplicity factor.
Well, people talk about the multiplier effect, and again, this is
the multiplier effect. That's it.
Horribly misused terms, which I've never yet found any of the advocates of local multipliers seem to have the slightest grasp of what they're talking about. They introduce totally specious, spurious analysis and statistics to give them the idea that they're doing something useful. They're not. And within the slush bucket that swills around a bit before it falls out, and this is like an eddy on the side of the river. The river's flowing through, but every so often you'll see a log that spins back into a side eddy for a couple of turns before it's then pulled away downstream again. So all river systems, all cellular, the biochemistry of our body stuff is coming into the cells and out of the cells and away. And how much is in, how much is out? Well, most of it's out. Of that which stays in, the Berkshire, the Salt Spring Dollar, they're just a part of that circulating slush. And although you can make it more evident that it's circulating by this piece of paper and by the bonhomie, the goodwill, the yippee, we're using our local complementary currency, the fact of the matter is you're just kidding yourselves. You're not changing a damn thing in consumer behavior, in the economy, in the liquidity of the local economy. Because, good grief, you pulled cash out of the local economy to put it in this funny paper. And this funny paper is just move around, take you through the participating local merchants, who in general are inclined to cash it back at the 5% discount or whatever. Because the cash is what they want, and so they've done it, they've turned it around. The paper goes back to the bank for the next happy, locally enthusiastic person to buy from the bank and give themselves the illusion that they're actually doing something. Sad. So basically, I think
just a bit of a note that does tend to push some of the buying towards local businesses.
Does it?
I don't know. Does it?
No, not in my knowledge. I mean, the purchasing decisions that somebody makes because they've got Berkshires in their pocket. I generally tend to think, yeah, sure, this is subjective, and you can never be absolute about what choices people make on the basis of whether the sun is shining or it's not shining, whether the color of this paper is red and pink or whether it's a standard old greenback. But basically, if you've got the money to spend, you spend it where you want to get the bang for your buck. And the amount of Berkshires that people use is probably not a huge proportion of their overall expenditure. I look forward to hearing when these forms of localized currency are taking a large impact and are seen to be positive. I just don't expect ever to see that. I look forward to it in my dreams. The scale isn't sufficient. The costs are huge.
And unfortunately, we don't really know the costs. One of the difficulties with discussion of community currencies is that there's so very little hard information about cost. Well, a cost-benefit breakdown. How much does it cost to launch one of these Berkshires, Toronto dollars, whatever? How much does it cost to keep it going? What about all the volunteer hours that go into managing and promoting and developing these programs?
And who's paying for it all? Because ultimately with any of these affairs, even if you don't fudge the edges and you do start producing the numbers and making them public, the usual justification is, well, we have created a reserve fund of so many thousand or even $1 million of hard money, and this is in the banks earning interest, perhaps in local lending, fine if it is, and therefore we're making a profit. And besides, because the merchants or others who cash in the local complementary currency, because they take a 95 cent in the dollar hit, that 5 cents is a cost to the business, one that they've accepted. It's a discount. It's another of these little chase to the bottom. And so you're hiding the externality of your project. You can make your project work because you're getting the businesses to bite the bullet by offering them this discount process for ostensibly bringing more traffic to them. And there may indeed be, if there's 500 businesses in town and 50 of them are using this dollar and others are not, then there will be a tendency for people to go through those businesses rather than the other 450. Does this mean you've changed the economy? No, it just means you've changed consumer choice in some small areas. And you've done it at the expense of the businesses who are participating for the marketing advantages. Economic impact? Nil. Social impact? Nil. Optical impact? Well, that depends on what color glasses you look through and whether you're willing to look hard at what's there or whether you're happy to be in a little sort of Pollyanna self-deception space. This is the most problematic thing for me about these concepts, is that the people who propagate them seem to believe they mean something. And it was said of Teilhard de Chardin that he could be excused for his deceptions of others on the grounds that he deceived himself even more. Well, that's a pretty lame excuse. And I'm not satisfied personally, and I hope others are equally dissatisfied with the idea that a delusion is tolerable because it is shared by many people. The world is not flat, and pretending that it is detrimental to everybody's good value. So
let's move on. Let's move on now to number 2.
Ithaca.
We have lost the thread totally.
Yep. The Ithaca Hour, the created script, let's print a piece of paper and circulate it to work on our local economy. That is a local currency. It is a created money. It adds to the available means of exchange. It increases the options for its users. It has a significant effect on the localization within the range of scale and variety that it can induce. But can you access it in a legitimate way? Well, some of them say, you join our system, we give you 100 first up or 20 first up. You get so many hours for the act of declaring yourself a local citizen. And one could perhaps say, okay, then therefore it's accessible. But I'm a little dubious about the depth of that analysis. It seems to me that it's still an institutionally created thing. Now, you can say we own our local hours system because 20 of us, 40 of us got together. We formed a non-profit 501c3. We created a board of governors. We held a competition for the color of the paper and whatever, and then we put it out there, and it is our money. Well, it is our money.
Not only that, it's democratic.
Oh, yeah, and it's got to be democratic, of course. I love the demo. It's the crassy stuff that really bugs me. Anyway, the Ithaca model reaches towards a valid economic entity, but it fails miserably on the open money scale in the access and ownership criteria, which are the first two. You can only get it by the usual business, and I do not add any significance to the idea that just because you say you're in, you get the first 50 for free. And that's a really defective method of enfranchising people. Hey, have this piece of paper. Now believe in it. How much do you believe in it? Oh, you got it for nothing, eh? Doesn't help the belief factor all that much. Now, as a continuity, yeah, if people get this thing going around and around and around and around and around and around and around, then that is economic energy. It is generative. It has facilitated. The indication, however, is that this is a consequence very much dependent upon the quality, the charisma, the energy of the instigators, and a pretty persistent driving force. It's also very clear that once such an unbacked fiat script, because we say so package, as soon as it loses credibility, it's gone. It's just blown away, and there is absolutely no likelihood that once it's failed, faded, stagnated, got lost, drifted off the radar screens, that you can walk back in with your wallet full of these pieces of paper and expect other people to take you seriously. It has become monopoly paper, little pieces of colored paper with no significance at all. So the Ithaca hours, sorry about that. Don't think they're very real. Okay, let's go on to the third criterion, which is the autonomy, the ability to, well, actually, no, it's still in the ownership, still number two. Are you the owner of this money? Have you the capacity to commit in this network, i.e. issue money on your own recognizances, on your own reputation, on your own responsibility? Are you accountable in this money for this money? The first step into that are the so-called commercial barter systems. I hate the fact that these idiots are still using the word barter when it's absolutely what they are not doing. Very important to use the right words. If you use the wrong words, the best you can hope for is confusion. You'll certainly never get any clarity. And the so-called barter organizations have always ducked the fact that they are actually institutions of monetary creation. However, within the commercial barter systems, the control of that monetary creation is very tightly managed by the central organization that owns the process, that is the organizer, instigator, publisher, broker, and fee-accepting central authority. So, do you own that? Well, at the consent of the real owners, you are given a scale of ownership. Oh yes, they say you're good for $1,000 of issue. You're good for $500 of issue. but you'll pay us handsomely in cash for that privilege. Well, so did you own it or were you sold it? And basically, you've been sold, baby. You've been sold if you're involved in commercial barter and paying somebody else to do something for you that you could do perfectly well yourself. So, sorry, the commercial barter people, although they are a sort of a straw in the wind, they point in the right direction. Well, I think they're very much like people who insist that they're flying because they run around the field flapping their arms. It may look a bit like it to the uninformed observer, but it ain't flying. Where do we get into the first stages of reality? Well, the first stages of reality are fundamentally user-managed mutual credit. Now, that's most typically the Let's model, the time bank model, perhaps the CES model out of South Africa, although there's a certain sense in which the CES drifts towards commercial barter, not ideologically, of course, but operationally. It is pretty damn centralized. It is pretty much a control structure, a somewhat paternalistic offering to the poor people. It hardly enfranchises in the way that it could. So with all acknowledgement to what Tim Jenkin and his team have been doing and the network they are creating, I gotta say, come on, you should get a little bit more real than you are. And that's really about the autonomy business. It's about this issue of, okay, so there is a monetary system has been created in our community. By whom? For whom? Can you create another? Does this implementation in your local town or village or city, does it enable you to be a currency creator, a declarer of a new money, to define the terms and behaviors that are acceptable within it, and to invite others to participate? The answer is, of course, no. Most of them do not. Most of them are resolutely singular, one money. And we've designed this the best we can. They probably held symposiums and competitions and charrettes to decide what is the best currency. But they've never gone to the intelligent space of saying, geez, there are many different facilities we've got to enable. There's many different processes we want to empower. Surely we can jump to the realization that different currencies achieve different things. So definitely many and variety is better than one and singularity. So until you get to the multiple option and the ability of the individual user of the community currency service to be a creator of a currency, you have not reached open money. Open money requires that the user can access it, can own it, and I don't just mean look in their wallet and find it, but I mean be the entitled participant, have choice within it, have the capacity to personally or organizationally, if you're a group, to create a commitment, a promise in that world. And that is a rather limited capacity. With multiple currencies, you're getting further. If those multiple currencies are at the discretion of the user group, you're home. Half home. Because you could still be inside this one little box, this community of a few hundred, few thousand people. So you have the internal fractal multiplicity, the thing that changes it from being a Metcalfe's law issue. The more we are together, the merrier we shall be. 1,000 people is so many possible connections. 1,001 is so many more. Factorial n, the Metcalfe law of size, which is considerably improved by the Reed's law, which says if you have 1,000 people, you can have many hundreds of different sub-networks, redefinitions within that. And then that's when you get variety and choice. So multiple currencies created by the users takes you to that place. But if it's only inside that grouping, then it's a bit like being inside the walled garden of AOL or CompuServe, or prior in the 80s, these bulletin boards where you could talk to your neighbors. Maybe your neighbor might have been in the other part of the planet, but it was just one closed network, and you could not reach out beyond that closed network to link with other possible networks with other individuals. So the connecting beyond is what truly makes money open. It becomes possible for people to be not just local, but global. Not just tied into a particular set of patterns, but able to create other patterns of economic exchange and relationship at will, and without the physical, technical boundaries that are intrinsic to organizations such as CES, such as the Cyclos software system, which is you're in our bucket, baby. We've herded you sheep into a different pen, and now you are in this pen. Well, some of them are offering a sort of hierarchical pen shall speak to pen. This herd of sheep can speak to that herd of sheep because we've declared that there shall be a super shepherd that controls how the herds shall speak unto the herds. This again takes you back to the idea that the herd is an autonomous, mutually responsible thing. So what people do through such hierarchical networks entails the rest of their local community. It's an invidious model. It's organizationally simplistic and well, it traps you back into the old hierarchical models. It does not confer autonomy, does not provide individual freedom. But if from my local base I have an identity, and that identity serves for my participation in not just the internal local fractal currencies, but also in others that are willing to accept my participation in other parts of the world, then we are actually open for business. We're out there and going for it. So those are the criteria that define open money. Open money means it's yours, baby. You've come a long way. You've got something that you can actually work with, and you're not restricted by limited politics, the limited technologies, the limited frames of reference. You're able to see a bit further and a bit wider beyond those. Well,
wow.
The last piece on that, and this is an important
before we
piece.
get into the last piece on this, just before you get into the last and most important piece, we've gone this whole show without anybody on the chat or on or calling in, which is fine. But if anybody does want to call in, they can. If you're in the States, it's free at 646-716-9424. There's a text chat on the Blog Talk Radio site, and you can put your questions up there if you like. There's only about 15 minutes left of the show. And you can also, if it's up on a podcast, you can email us. I'm Ernie at openmoney.org, and Michael is MWL@openmoney.org. And you can Google Open Money. We've got all kinds of material out there. So there you go. Go back to you.
And we could probably look at this as the seasonal message from the Open Money people, the people who brought you Open Money. That's Ernie and me at this point, with considerable support from such as Hugh Bernard, Eric Harris-Brown, Jeff Cheshire, and many others who are beavering in the background to bring this forward. I won't name them at this point, but we are not alone, even if nobody has linked into this.
we keep saying that. We are not alone. We are not alone. That makes me feel better.
It does. Oh, well, good. We are not alone. Now, we are just talking to each other at this point because through the miracles of modern time asymmetric processes, the asynchronicity of podcasting and recording, potentially many, many people can be listening to this later over their Christmas feast or their Hanukkah happies or whatever people have.
And transcribing. And that's what we could really use some help with. If anybody is into doing some transcription of these podcasts, please get in touch and we can maybe coordinate things. I've got the last show just about done, so it'll be up soon. Got 10 minutes left.
And one of the important ideas about transcribing is you don't have to transcribe the whole damn thing. In this last 45 minutes, I'm sure a considerable component of it hardly deserves to be typed. So transcription is a partial process, and it gradually has...
Not in my experience, because it's more difficult to make decisions than it is just to rattle it all down. For me, anyway.
You know, Arnie, I think that would be a personal experience. Other people may find it quite willing to ignore large chunks of this, like the last few minutes, for instance. Who is going to transcribe this? Right?
Last few minutes.
You go right past it and you get on to the stuff that matters. And particularly because as the transcription is built up, as the show is built up and you have 10 minutes transcribed here and 5 minutes there and 3 minutes in this section, you can see which pieces may or may not benefit from additional work. And a good deal of it doesn't. But I don't want people to think that transcription means...
I disagree. A good deal of it does. I think it's all good. Anyway, finish it off. You've got about 12 minutes left.
Well, I referred to our ability to connect beyond. And within a few weeks, possibly even before the new year, but let's not promise that, we will be opening a global open money network. At this point, the intent is to implement the Hugh Bernard CC Lite package and to use this as the icebreaker for global open money. But the capacity of one software installation to accommodate will be severely restricted. Scaling requires that we have multiple installations of servers scattered around the planet, serving their local or regional geographies, and being able to provide this interconnectivity on a much more resilient and sustainable level. And that will be the task, perhaps, of the next 6 months. If it takes longer than that, I'll be very disappointed. Now, that is not an unusual experience. I've been very disappointed for many, many years. But I noticed that the urgency is rising. The same issues that made it comparatively easy in the early 80s to bring people's attention to the values of community currencies are coming back in spades. I came across a Mark Twain quote the other day. He said it wasn't the return on his money that interested him so much as the return of his money. Now, the biggest problem we have with conventional money, irrespective of you invested and hope to profit, that's a nice dream. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. The bigger problem is I spend it and it's gone. Our answer with community currencies is you spend it and it comes back. It's that simple. The conventional approach to money, that it is valuable and you are not, means that the money has no loyalty to you, to the place, to the situation. It's a cipher that is running your world. You are being controlled by something that truly doesn't really exist. Rather pitiful when you come to think of it. As Yeats said, things are in the saddle and ride mankind. Well, time to get in your own saddle. Time to work with your own money. And open money is the royal road. Royal? The word royal came from real, I believe. Or was it real came from royal? Well, anyhow, the high road to open money is do it. So anybody who is actually interested in working in these areas, playing in these areas, living in these areas, come on board. Let's get on with the show. And that, for me, is enough for today. Unless, Ernie, you have some other issues you wanted to raise and discuss.
Oh, I don't know. I know. We were looking for some kind of way to have a little bit of fun with Madoff.
Oh, Mad Dog Madoff. The
Mad
Ponzi
Dog.
Scheme of all Ponzi schemes.
Yeah. Ponzi. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. It's the concern that people have with community currencies being used the same way that normal money is used, such as this massive Ponzi scheme. It's
a
scam, fiddles.
Well, people
money,
should be concerned. People should be very concerned because not only are there the particular examples of such greed and deception as the Madoff instance, $50 billion. Who said there weren't a bunch of fools in the planet? There are. They come in all shapes and sizes. And Madoff got away with it for many, many, many years. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, or whatever you say. And people are saying, how did this happen to me? Well, everybody's looking for free rides. And the entire conventional monetary system is geared towards the free ride. Get ahead, get stacked up, and then use your historic earnings. And sometimes the word earnings is overused and illegitimate. Sometimes it's mere theft, sometimes mere fantasy. But everybody seems to believe that they can get something for nothing. They think that that's the way the world works. Well, it doesn't. And the current shakedown, the current collapse of value in the housing markets, the monetary markets, this is a historic event. It happens time and time again. It's part of the cycle. It's you induce people up the ladder, generally the middle class. The middle class is sucked up the ladder to aspirations to become of a higher class, to have more. And then they find as they get towards the top of the ladder that people are standing on their fingers.
Not just class. I mean, it's not just class, right? It's not just they're striving for, but they're striving for a better position. Especially people who work for a living their whole lives, contributing to a pension fund. And planning their retirement on the basis of their earnings, being totally screwed.
Yeah, sucked in and screwed. Dead right. I don't want to make it into a class issue in the sense of, the working class and this and that and the other. No, I'm talking about, however, the sort of the mid. If you take the curve of our who's got what, you'll see a long flat of all the people who are principally poor. We've got very little to deal with. Then you move into the so-called middle economy, the middle class, the people who are sort of making it and would like to make it more. And then you move up the curve to the wealth acquisition side. And of course, Reaganomics and Thatcherism and the shock and awe, shock doctrines, all this stuff has contributed greatly to the carrot and stick phenomena. And the people who are most susceptible to that in terms of getting on the bandwagon, trying to climb the slope, are the so-called middle class. The poor people are screwed no matter what. sorry about that. If you're not on the curve, you're off it. You're on the flatlands at the bottom, and you're going to suffer no matter what. But the whole game is supported by the belief that we can get rich. We'll make it one day. It's like the people who really want lotteries to persist are people who have not enough money, but a lottery is a dream and a possibility. Well, the idea that we one day can make it in this economy, that our pension will be keep good for the next 50 years, these are delusions and illusions, often peddled with the best of intentions, but they are dreams. And the dream is turning to a nightmare, and Madoff and the boys are just the nasty little pimples on the process.
And the process is all about the way the money works, conventional money. And the question had to do with, or the issue had to do with, that some people think that the same kinds of games, fiddles, cons will go on within community currencies. And we've got you got 3 minutes left to deal with that.
Well, that's where we go to the Let's Play games. Let's Play, which you can find on openmoney.org. You can Google it. You can do all sorts of things. You will find Let's Play. And indeed, we have offline versions. You can download the game, print it, and play it in small groups of 10, 20, or 200. Or you can go to one of the websites that's using Jeff Cheshire's software, Regenerosity, Party Smart software, and you can play with it there. Now, it's not well polished, but it is absolutely on the money. The game shows you what happens with money which is of the conventional form. You get rich and you get poor. And how by in comparison with a social money, a network money, a community currency on a mutual credit basis, the whole concept of rich and poor changes, is gone. Also, the opportunity to exploit is gone. The opportunity to merely profit from others is gone. It becomes, you get what you give. It's a world that the quality of your experience has a lot to do with the quality of your input. And within this model, the opportunity for rip-off artists is considerably reduced. Now, I'm not saying it's not there. There will be all sorts of scam artists. There'll be multi-level marketers. There'll be people who have, hey, just put it in here and get it out, and you'll have more. Second Life, for instance, in that game space. People created Ponzi schemes very easily in there, and led to a considerable crisis in their economy. Well, there will be people who will jump into open money with the same ambitions, the same deceits, the same delusions. They can get rich from other people. Well, no, sorry about that. We can be wealthy as community. And the Ponzi model, it hardly exists within community currencies and can be readily recognized and easily avoided. So I think the short answer is go play the game. Find out how this works. Learn the difference between a flat earth and a round one. Understand realities and you will have some hope. If you're still lost, well, in the fog, in the dark, you're going to have trouble, and there are risks that unintelligent participation in community currencies could be a problem for you. But if you learn it, read it, connect with others,
that issue that has to do with reputation. The problem the problem for anybody trying to fiddle in a community currency is reputation, and the only person really hurt is the con. Anyway, there's only 40 seconds remaining. We're out of here.
You wind it up, Ernie.
I'll do that. I'm winding it. Okay. Thanks, Michael Linton. And me, I'm Ernie Jacob. We're in the Comox Valley. This is Open Money on Blog Talk Radio, and we'll be back. Are we doing this again tomorrow, Michael? Tomorrow afternoon.
Might do. Let's put in a little chat tomorrow. Continue this discussion.
Okay. Like a 6 o'clock show, something like that.
God knows. Look on the site.
All right. Okay. Anyway, we're going to do something tomorrow. We're going to talk
You
more.
betcha.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Ernie.
Okay. Bye. And
The show is on,
it
but
says-
not streaming. It's just you and
That's
me and
right.
the other chickens. Okay. Hanging up.
Chicken. All right. See ya.
And then I'll call you.
Okay.